AIGA was awesome. This edition of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle with me, Ross, is entitled Must See Moments from AIGA, and with a bit of luck, you will be able to see those moments and not just hear me describe them. So watch along if you can, and I will do my best to insert some clips of footage such as the move that was voted submission of the tournament on a Jiu Jitsu Oracle Instagram poll that went to a Suloev stretch used by Fabricio Andre in his semi-final match, where his team, Team Kasai, ultimate winners of the event, beat Universal Fighters to progress to the final against Williams. Let's just sit on this semi-final for a little bit, because there was a couple of other interesting moments, as well as that awesome submission victory for Fabricio. Diego Pato also had a submission victory that caused a bit of a skirmish. He went for a heel hook on his opponent. His opponent kind of tapped. He did tap. He hit Pato's knee a couple of times. Pato then stopped applying the submission. The opponent looked like he wanted to continue, so Pato then had to put the submission on much harder. I think Pato was aggrieved at having to do that, potentially injuring his opponent. Kind of looked around and said, "You tapped," something to that effect anyway. And then after the match, there was a bit of a pushing and shoving match. Ultimately, it all calmed down. But Diego Pato's heel hook there, with a very interesting grip on the heel. For you grappling nerds, pay close attention to that. One of the submission highlights of the weekend. Also in that match, this might have flown under the radar a little bit, but Ruslan Abdullayev beat Kaynan Duarte, and on Instagram, Gordon Ryan popped up and used that to suggest that any match between him and Kaynan at ADCC 2026 would kind of be irrelevant, not worthy of him taking part or whatever, because Kaynan lost to Ruslan. Then Ruslan popped up in the comments from what I saw, and kind of went back and forth with Gordon a little bit. So perhaps we have a new contender in the heavyweight division in Ruslan Abdullayev. But yeah, Kasai against Universal Fighters. Really interesting semi-final. The semi-final on the other side of the bracket was also very, very interesting and gave one of the highlights of the weekend. That was Williams' team against Al Leon. It all came down to a match between Chris Vojic and Isaac Michel. The score was tied at 3-3 going into that final match. We had Chris, who represents B Team, trains at B Team. Wasn't representing B Team in this event, but he's a B Team guy, against Isaac, former B Team guy. So that added to the storyline of the match. And in 21 seconds, Isaac Michel pulled off an amazing armbar. Chris had a Kimura grip from the bottom. Isaac turned it into an armbar finish. 21 seconds on the clock. that put Williams into the final where they would face Team Kasai. Just touching on that semi-final between Williams and Leon, a couple of other interesting moments. We had another one of those situations where a tap, a submission wasn't necessarily as purposeful as it could have been.
I don't know. Right hand palm up.
You think, yeah?
You said fucking yup.
Yeah.
Not again. Yeah. So Big Dan's opponent, Ian Dobby, I might pronounce it. I've given it a go anyway, whether I'm right or wrong. Dan had a kind of leg entanglement on Ian. I think Ian verbally submitted, said something along the lines of yup, and then as Dan kind of let it go, Ian might have made a motion to continue, at which point Dan was pretty aggrieved. He said, yeah, you tapped. So ultimately, handshakes were shared afterwards and everything sort of settled down. But guys, submissions, taps, they're verbal submissions, they're there to protect you, right? So don't play the game of like maybe half tapping, go into tap, and then the guy lets go of the sub, and then you keep going, or that's what you hope will happen. Because ultimately, in order to make the submission really stick, guys could go all out on it right away. You know, a lot of people apply submissions in a way that gives their opponent time to submit. So we don't want to have it where like guys are smashing on submissions because their opponents have kind of played a little game with it, as it were. But yeah, just wanted to highlight that because it wasn't just a situation that happened with Universal Fighters. It happened in this match as well, between Williams and Leon. One match I want to highlight from this, you should go and watch these matches, by the way. The event was live on YouTube, so I assume the video's still up. Free to watch. Loads of exciting grappling over the weekend. Hopefully, by me highlighting some of these must-see moments, even if you don't want to watch all the hours that took place, you can skip forward or back and find these moments and watch them. You could also go on the AIGA Instagram page and see some of this stuff, some of these highlights that have been posted. But one of the best matches I saw of the weekend happened in Williams against Leon semi-final, where Felipe Machado faced Giancarlo Daiki. Really close match. And I think there's a couple of guys from this event, including Felipe and Daiki, and we can add Junior Casio to this list as well, who I would like to see face Mikey Musumeci. Maybe a bit of a step up in competition for Mikey. Some of these guys from recent matches that Mikey's had. I hope if any of these guys take a match against Mikey, they don't end up in an exclusive contract or a contract with a non-compete time period attached to it, as has been suggested that the UFC contracts might have. They allegedly have. But yeah, I think one thing that came out of that UFC Road to the Title and then BJJ 1 event is that if Mikey Musumeci is going to be the face of the promotion, the main guy in the bantamweight division, then you need to get guys in line to face him and give him some matches that are worth tuning in to see. And I think Felipe and Daiki and Juni could all provide that. So, plenty of action in the semi-finals. And that was on day 2. So if you go onto the AIGA day 2 video, you'll see that. And then you'll see the final, which was between Kasai and Williams. Kasai raced into a 4-0 lead that was unassailable. So just before we get into a couple of highlights from the final, let's talk about how AIGA operates. And I think their format is really good. I think it's showing that there is a place for multiple different styles. We're going to have the quintet style used in CGI 2. Over at Polaris in the UK, which I'll talk about, they had their women's squads event. They run a slightly different format. More on that later. And then AIGA. Basically, AIGA works by every team fields 7 grapplers for the match, the entire match, as it were. Those 7 grapplers, it's kind of like a wrestling duel. So you face an opponent at that weight class. So it's not like CGI 2 with the quintet format where guys can face other grapplers across different weight classes. But AIGA, you face, if you're under 60 kilograms, you face the under 60 kilogram guy from the other side. There's 7 weight classes. It's a best of 7, first of 4, and Kasai won the first 4 matches of the final. It started off with Jason Nolf getting DQ'd for a slam on Diego Pato. You can slam out of submissions, but you're not allowed to slam if it's like a closed guard. Nolf was DQ'd there. And then Fabricio Andre beat Dante Leon in a close match, an exciting match, a match that we could see again at CGI 2. Fabricio, the wildcard for Team Australasia. Dante on Daisy Fresh / PSF. Then we had a great match, an all-action match between 2 teammates from New Wave or Kingsway, whatever branding they're going to be going with going forward. They were on different teams. Dorian Olivares was Team Kasai. Dominic Mejia was Team Williams. They went out and went at it. Really exciting match. But ultimately, Dorian's wrestling was just too strong for Dom, even although he had a couple of moments in the match. And then the win for Kasai was sealed by a really impressive victory for Roberto Jimenez against Giancarlo Bodoni. Roberto's attempts to take the back, really impressive. Giancarlo had a leg entanglement. I started to think, oh, will that lead towards a finish? But no. Roberto, in the past, I think in the past he has had some issues with leg entanglements, but I don't know how much that affects him more recently. Could be a bit of a cliche when there's a leg entanglement now. You're thinking, oh, Roberto could be in trouble. But he dealt with it fine, and those back attempts were awesome. So he got an impressive win over Giancarlo. It sealed the deal for Team Kasai. They were 4-0 up at that stage. Now, there's a little bit here that is awkward with the format, and that is if you have already secured victory as a team, you're 4-0 up. It's unassailable. Even if the other team wins the next 3 matches, they get 3 points on the board. You have won. The next matches are still expected to take place, and I think there was a slight break in the action where Team Kasai were seemingly suggesting, well, what's the point in the rest of the matches taking place? And then ultimately, I think organizers got involved and persuaded them to do the matches. So it was Kaynan against Big Dan next. And that was then the most uneventful match of the weekend. Probably one of the most uneventful matches in Jiu-Jitsu. Although it was only over 15 minutes. I'll just bring in the AIGA score in there. Again, I think it works well. There are 3 5-minute periods. If you submit, you win the match. Otherwise, each individual round is scored on points that follow ADCC rules, essentially. The first 2 minutes, with a slight twist, the first 2 minutes of the match, the first 2 minutes of each round, only a takedown can score. Then at the 3-minute mark, and I should add there, guard pulls are not penalised. So that gets the action going, gets it into a place where the athletes want to have the match. And then the next 3 minutes are scored basically under ADCC rules. So, yeah, AIGA's scoring format seemed to work well across the weekend. There was plenty of interesting matches. Apart from Kaynan against Big Dan, but I can't blame either of those 2 guys. I mean, It was basically a match where they stood up and they did a lot of hand fighting. But why would you put yourself in more precarious positions when the outcome's already been decided? It didn't seem that there was any more money on the line, etc. So I kind of understand why they had the match they had. Although, that said, the match after between Pedro Mourinho and Isaac Michel was awesome. Yeah, they had loads of exchanges. They went for it. So maybe it just depends on the attitudes of the guys. But yeah, that match and then the Junior Casio against Felipe Machado match had plenty of action to round out the day. By the time it finished, I think it was 2 a.m. in Kazakhstan. So fair play to these guys for keeping it going. Ultimately, Team Kasai came out on top. I thought AIGA was awesome. You should go back and watch it on YouTube and Instagram. That's what this podcast is here to highlight. If there's any footage used, we make at the Jiu Jitsu Oracle, we make absolutely nothing financially off these podcasts. We have zero production budget, so we're doing our best to show you the highlights from the tournament rather than just having me talk about them. Day one, plenty of excitement as well. What I want to highlight, because we're a UK podcast, we're based in Europe. Team Eurotrash had a really tough draw against Williams, who ultimately secured second place. But there were a couple of highlights here. Rashid Khan had a submission victory over Gabriel Souza with a choke. So that was a bit of a surprise. I think Gabriel would have been favourite there, but very impressive win for Rashid Khan. And then I want to shout out Pavel Javorsky, the false reap master, who had a decision win over Oliver Taza. So that was the 2 points that went on board for Eurotrash. Ultimately, Williams won that whole match 5-2. But I think Eurotrash, like their team was maybe hampered by pullouts or travel issues, etc. Not just the only team that had probably not as strong a team as they could have fielded. In the first match of the day, we saw Al Leon. This is day one, by the way. Al Leon secure a clean sweep over Acai Republic. And Acai Republic, yeah, they had, I think Hulk made it to Kazakhstan, but he didn't compete. Jonatas Gracie didn't compete. I'm not sure. I think he was there because he was advertised to come out, and I thought we were going to get a match between Jonatas and PJ Barch, which I was expecting to be awesome, but we didn't get that match. So yeah, and then Mika Galvao has posted on social media. Check out his social media, his reasons for not going to the event. I think he would have been on Acai Republic as well. So ultimately, they were kind of, I think it's fair to say the team was weaker than it could have been. But one of the highlights of the first day happened here. Daniel Stewart probably had the biggest win of his career, securing a heel hook victory over Felipe Andrew. That made it 7-0. I think it was 6 submissions for Al Leon as well. So they had a terrific showing at the tournament, taking third place ultimately, losing that semi-final to Williams, who went on to take second place. And I believe that gave them, Williams got $300,000 as a team. I think top prize to Kasai was $500,000. And then third place, 150, fourth place, 50. I think it was a $1 million total prize pool. So fantastic that grapplers are getting paid. And congratulations to AIGA for an awesome couple of days of grappling. I just wanted to highlight some of the must-see moments. But if you want to highlight any others, jump into the YouTube comments and let me know what stood out for you. It wasn't just AIGA. at the weekend. There was Polaris, a women's squads event as well in the UK, and that was also a super exciting event. So I think Polaris squads format is really good. Basically, you have two teams, two 45-minute halves. Individual matches are 5 minutes. Winner stays on, and then the other team gets to pick who they send in next. So the advantage of the Polaris squads format is you get to see these guys having multiple matches across the event. And I think that's really good. So at AIGA, for example, sometimes some grapplers would have only taken part in maybe 1 or 2 matches across the weekend. AIGA allow teams to bring substitutes. So although you field 7 grapplers in one team match, if you win and go through, you can change your roster in the next team match. So we can see grapplers not taking part in as many individual matches as we might have hoped. CGI2, I think that's going to be really interesting from that point of view. A team qualifies, you bring them over to the States to compete, and then maybe a guy gets to go out once and it's a quick match. I know that can happen in all sorts of grappling events, you know. IBJJF Worlds, first round, you lose, you're out. You've maybe had 2 minutes of mat time. But I think what Polaris affords, that allows the fans to see the grapplers they want to see multiple times. And I think that's a really strong part of the squads format. Shout out Margot Ciccarelli, who won 5 individual matches in a row at one point. And that gave Europe a 9-7 lead at that point in the match. Then Helena Cravar, team captain for North America, came out. She made it 9-9, 10-9, then 11-9 to North America. I think you get 1 point if you win a judge's decision in the round, and you get 2 points if there was a submission. But ultimately, it all came down to Helena Cravar against Sula May Loventhal in a sort of 90-second match right at the end, which, if Sula May had won the match, then I think the final score would have been a draw at 11-11 if she'd have won the match by submission. It was 11-9 going into that. And I'm not posting highlights from the Polaris event because it's on UFC Fight Pass. And I don't want to get into bother with copyright and all this kind of stuff. Like I said, the Jiu Jitsu Oracle has a 0 production budget. So if you have Fight Pass, which is a paid subscription service, as opposed to AIGA, which was free on YouTube and posted plenty of highlights on Instagram, I think you should go and watch squads, the latest squads, the women's squads from Polaris. You'll see loads of exciting individual action. But yeah, Sula May came out, knew Helena was going to pull, basically ran straight over her, got into mount, and then from there she was attacking Americana finishes. I think she got the back at one point. There was real late drama. Because the match went over 90 seconds, it went to a judge's decision. Sula May got the nod, deservedly. That made the final score 11-10. So a really close, exciting match, and I don't think you can ask for much more. But on Polaris, even if you don't have UFC Fight Pass and you're not going to watch the main card, and I just want to say, on the main card, we had one super fight, Ono Flanagan against Muhammad Aftarhanov. Muhammad got off to a great start, passing Owen's guard. Owen eventually came back and won right at the end of the first round with a Z-lock submission. But if that's still not enough to convince you to go and watch the event on UFC Fight Pass, the prelims were up on YouTube for free. And in the main event of the prelims, Owen Jones secured a decision win over Carson Coles. Owen was attacking the legs throughout. Great defense from Carson. Carson couldn't really get anything going from an attacking point of view, but gave a good account of himself. Owen Jones will picked up the victory. So, two exciting grappling events across the weekend, AIGA and Polaris. What did you think of both events? Get into the comments, let me know. If I've successfully been able to post any must-see video clips, hopefully that'll persuade you to then go back and watch the full matches. And the Jiu Jitsu Oracle will be back in the near future with plenty of content building up to CJI 2 at the end of August. So give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, tell your friends, tell your teammates, etc. And let's enjoy this period where we've had some great grappling, UFC BJJ coming on the scene, Polaris, AIGA, IBJJF Worlds wasn't even that long ago, and now we're going into CJI 2. So shout out to all the big grappling events that are happening and giving us some exciting matches to watch.